why don't we start with the Hart, guys? And Chad, do you want to, just to start, do you want to go through kind of the odds? I know you've got them up there for the players who have the best chance to win the Hart.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with the odds, and I use FanDuel for this when going through. So if you want to download FanDuel, one of my most used sportsbooks, by the way, you can click the link in our bio and get the #1 offer. So just a quick plug there. But yeah, on FanDuel for the Hart Trophy, Nathan MacKinnon is the favorite at -300. The field is next, so anyone else at +230. Nikita Kucherov is +500. Connor McDavid is +600, and Austin Matthews has dropped quite a bit and is now +1,500. And on other sites, I've seen him as low as +2,000. So those are the odds right now. Maybe we'll go to Case first. Who do you think has the most realistic chance to win the Hart Trophy after hearing those odds? And maybe who do you think has maybe an outside shot, or who do you think the best value is?
Well, first off, more importantly, Elias Pettersson's dropped down to +20,000. So my preseason bet on him has fallen short. He's probably not even going to be the MVP of his team. We'll probably talk about that more later. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty closely aligned with the odds right now on who I think is going to win the Hart. And, I will say it's probably going to be MacKinnon. He leads in total goals on ice for, leads all players in shots, goals created, 4th in goals and 2nd in points. Like, he's playing unbelievable. And, when you look at it, just the eye test, you just think he's driving the play at all times. But I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and I'm going to say that Kucherov is going to win the Hart. When I look at it, and I look at kind of all the stats together, they're really closely aligned, except for like shots. MacKinnon's ridiculous in that category, but I'd say that the stats are more closely aligned. And at the end of the day, I think that Kucherov is playing on the weaker team overall, and really his play. There's the argument to be made that his play, his MVP caliber play, is what has dragged this team into like comfortable playoff position, instead of realistically where they'd be is in the wild card race if it wasn't for Kucherov. Now, the argument is that MacKinnon has made his team a top team in the league and a Stanley Cup favorite, but I think he has a little more support in guys like Makar and Rantanen, who are top 10 in every other stat as well. So those two guys and kind of the narrative that we've been talking about with the Hart Trophy lately, where it's more about, the impact on your team. And if your team is a weaker team, then that looks more favorable for you. If we look at it that way, then I'm probably gonna go with Kucherov here.
Yeah, well, you have to remember that the Hart Trophy is given to the player adjudged to be the most valuable to his team. Not the most valuable player in the league, but the most valuable to his team. So, Case, I like the argument you made in favor of Kucherov being more valuable to his team than MacKinnon. And honestly, I tend to agree with it. I just look at the supporting cast who support MacKinnon, and I think it's better than the supporting cast who support Kucherov. And the numbers kind of say that too. So with MacKinnon, he has 44 goals, 78 assists for 122 points in 71 games. He's on pace for 141 points. That's crazy, by the way, guys. There's a few other players who are up there, all of which we're going to talk about. But 141 points on pace for is disgusting. But then if you look at the players on his team, like Rantanen has 96 points in 71 games. Makar is up for the Norris Trophy with 78 in 66. So those are some pretty good players there who support MacKinnon. And then for Kucherov, he has 41 goals, so just 3 fewer than MacKinnon, 82 assists, and 123 points in 70 games, on pace for 3 more points than MacKinnon for 144, which would be his best ever. I think his best is 128 the year that he won the Hart Trophy last time. So just incredible numbers there. But then if you look at the players who support him, of course, there are some great players and some good two-way players as well. But the next closest point getter is Braden Point with just 80 points in 70 games. That's a 43-point difference right now between first and second place on his team. So, Case, I think you make a really great point in just the supporting cast for Kucherov is not quite as good as it is for McKinnon.
Yeah, I think we all expected Colorado to be at the top of the league. And, there's questions about Tampa Bay going into the season by, most people. We're all kind of expecting them to be a playoff team, but it to be more of a race. And, you're wondering when the regression has to start coming for a team that is, coming off like a dynasty type run. Well, I mean, Kucherov has just shouldered the weight of keeping this team more than relevant. Like, they are still contenders, and it's because he drives this team so much. And then, like, something I found interesting is that McKinnon starts in the ozone far more than Kucherov. And I didn't
That's shocking.
expect to see that. Now, there's a lot of, like, those stats are a little muddied by, like, the on the fly starts and stuff like that. So it is based off percentages where they are starting their shift. I will say that, like, McKinnon is the better defensive player. Sometimes it feels like Kucherov can get lost out there, but man, you're comparing two guys that are just absolute workhorses and drive their teams, really. I wonder what Rantanen is without McKinnon. I wonder what Point is without Kucherov. And I mean, they're great players, but you have to look at the goals created stat and you say, man, 44.4 and 44.3 for these two guys.
Wild.
Crazy. Great points there on Kucherov. And I agree. He doesn't have the same supporting cast that McKinnon has in Colorado for sure. And I would, in terms of being an elite passer, I would have to give the edge to Kuch as well, with the level of deception that he has with the puck, like with his stick and his eyes and whatever. Like, he's, he can throw guys off so well and so often and just deliver these gorgeous passes to Braden Point or Stamkos or Brandon Hagel, whoever it is. And so that's one thing that really sticks out to me and that we talk about and hear so often when it comes to Kucherov is how elite his passing is and the great deception that he has in his game. I'd have to give the slight edge to him in that regard.
Yeah, and while we're talking about supporting cast too, we might as well bring in the other two players who are technically still in this race. McDavid has 117 points right now in 67 games, and he's on pace for 111 assists, which is insane. But then if you look at his supporting cast, you've got Leon Draisaitl, who has 92 points in 69 games, which is an incredible feat in and of itself. And then when you look at Matthews and his supporting cast, Matthews actually doesn't even lead the team in points. That's William Nylander, who has one more than Matthews does, despite all of Matthews' goals. Of course, he's on pace for 69 right now, and nobody scored 70 goals in a long, long time. It was McGillmy in 1992-93, and that's why he's even in this conversation. But in terms of supporting cast, we've all identified that Kucherov has the least help. So my question then, to kind of like continue this conversation comparing McKinnon and Kucherov, is the main argument in favor of McKinnon just the fact that he hasn't won it before and all of these other guys have? Because when comparing McKinnon and Kucherov, you look at who's on pace for more points, that's Kucherov, and who has less help doing that, it's also Kucherov. So in terms of who's more valuable to their team, I don't know why McKinnon is the betting favorite right now. Am I wrong to say that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it is voted for by the media, and Nathan McKinnon is absolutely a media darling. Whereas I think that Kucherov can get left on the shelf in that aspect. But I don't know. I have to think that McKinnon's more likely to get the Ted Lindsay than he is the Hart, just because of the strength of his team. I don't know. I don't know how much they actually put weight in that. It seems like it's been more ever since Taylor Hall won the Hart. And and that shows why like guys like Quinn Hughes and Pedersen and Miller and like all those guys aren't really in the conversation, because that team is such a collective effort to be driving them to the top of the league. And, you know, maybe the same for McDavid, but I did want to kind of mention McDavid, and because we've only really talked about him in passing, there's an argument to be said, like, look at that team when he wasn't going at the beginning of the season. Like they were,
yeah.
I mean, we were thinking they were going to miss the playoffs, and then he turned it on. Draisaitl, both of them, they turned it on, and now they're a contender again. So it's like, yeah, I don't know, but maybe that is what makes an MVP. But I do hear what you're saying. Like, I start to think McKinnon hasn't won it. The media loves him. He's Canadian and not from a country that is currently being shunned. I don't know if that's going to put any weight in there. I'm sure I'm going to get shit on for that. But I don't know. There's a lot that goes into this, folks.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned McDavid too, because yeah, like he's not even like he's third right now in terms of Vegas favorites, but he has put together an incredible season after a very average start by his standards. Yeah. And like I said, I'm going to come back to the stat. If he scores 100 assists for the first time since Wayne Gretzky did in 1990-91, like that, if he accomplishes that, how can you not say, or how can you say that he's not the most valuable player to his team? If he was able to bring his team out of the basement just by producing at an incredible clip. So yeah, Case, I'm glad you brought up McDavid. It's crazy.
I mean, he turned Zach Hyman into a 50 goal scorer this year. So,
oh my God, man. Oh my God. Zach Hyman scored 50 goals, all from the blue paint, tap-ins from McDavid. Like crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing to see how many people out there seem to have an issue with Zach Hyman being a 50 goal scorer as well. But you know, I mean, that's what you get when you're a hard worker like Hyman, and when you're playing with a guy like McDavid. And you know, if he hits 100 assists, and given the start that the Oilers had and all the adversity they've gone through this year with the coaching change and everything, you know, in my eyes, that's got to put him right up there as you know, as potentially the favorite for this award. I think that would just be absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. And bringing it back to betting, because that was like the first thing, like I went through all the odds. FanDuel has McKinnon versus the field, and the field is plus 230 right now. If Kucherov scores, you know, even 5 to 8 more points than McKinnon, he could easily win it. If McDavid scores 100 points, or 100 assists rather, he could easily win it. And if Matthews scores 70 goals, he could easily win it. So I think the value right now, at least on FanDuel, because they're the only book that I know of who's offering this bet, is betting on the field at plus 230 versus McKinnon, who's minus 300 or minus 305 or whatever. So that's what I would go with. But the final question for you guys on this, what do you guys think is actually more impressive? Because I'm not even sure of it myself. 100 assists or 70 goals? I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm not sure which one is more impressive.
It's 70 goals for me. There's 1 goal and there's 2 assists, and to score 70 goals, you have to score 70 goals. Whereas to get 100 assists, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from 100 assists. It's pretty damn impressive, obviously, considering how many guys have done it. I'm just saying that, you know, not many guys have been scoring 70 goals either. And
nope.
Yeah, you've got to do it. Whereas, I don't know, tack on a couple of secondary assists. You know what blew my mind today? Looked it up. 1 empty net goal. That's how many empty net goals Matthews has. And it was Sunday.
It was the other night,
or
too.
Saturday. Yeah.
It was the other night.
That blew my mind. You know,
I'm like 200 feet.
I felt like he had more, and I'm like, wow, he's got 58 goals on pay, like going for 70. He's got to have a lot of empty netters, right? No, 1. So,
yeah, I would like to see how many empty netters a guy like basically everyone else on the team has, because it feels like the last 2 minutes, it's, Matthews collapses with the D-men, and then there's some water bug, whether it's Mitch or like Yarncroke or whoever buzzing around the top, trying to chase those empty net goals. So it's never Matthews, which is, it's crazy. But yeah, both really impressive. Let the record show that Casey thinks McDavid is overrated for getting 100 assists, and he doesn't think it's even that good.
Yeah, he can thank Zach Hyman.
Yeah, exactly.
Case is like, you know what? Too many of those are secondary assists, whatever. So that's no, just kidding. But no, I had to think about that for a second, obviously, and because it is a really good question. But I will hop on with Case on this one and say that 70 goals is more impressive. I mean, you're the sole guy to get those goals, and so he certainly creates his own chances with that shot and that incredible release. And, again, the empty netters thing is wild, because I think about a guy like Ovechkin, who we were talking about, and I believe Ovi at this point now has the most empty net goals of all time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think so. I think I heard that.
Yeah. And so, and we're all watching Ovi to see if he can tie the record and eventually pass Gretzky for most goals all time. But think about where he would be at on the all-time goals list if it weren't for all those empty netters. And then Matthews, with the kind of year that he's having, on pace for 69-70 with only one empty net goal. That is incredible. And as the years go on here, and it's already started. I mean, we're talking about Matthews now as one of the best goal scorers we've ever seen, and he'll be after that record as well that Gretzky currently holds. So yeah, I will agree. The 70 goals is the more impressive one. But man, it just goes to show, like, we are in the golden era of talent, elite talent, generational talents in the NHL. It's fun to watch.
Oh, there's like 10 games left.
We're going to look back on this. Go ahead.
There's 10 games left, and there's going to be like potentially 10 players with more than 100 points, or maybe more players than that. And just quickly to go back on like what I was saying, like I can't take anything away from McDavid, because on those 100 assists, he is driving the play most of the time, and he is the one creating all that. I just more so meant it as, like, statistically, there's more assists out there.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Well, and like another thing is 70 goals has been done more recently than 100 assists. But when you look at other players in the league this year, there are guys closer, like Kucherov, for example, is on pace for 96 assists. So like he could even potentially do it. And then if there's the chance that you have two guys who do this thing, then it seems like less, I don't know, it seems it's less novel, it's less impressive, but 70 goals would be crazy. I will say McDavid is going to be a hell of a lot closer to 100 assists than I think Matthews will be to 70 goals, or it's far more likely anyways that happens. And neither has been done yet to this point. So we'll have to see. The games still have to be played. But what I was going to say is, Harp, like you mentioned it, I think we're going to look back on this era of hockey, and like the era that's coming out of the dead puck era, with all the incredible young stars that the league has now, the stars that Ovechkin and Crosby kind of passed the torch on to. And we're going to say to ourselves, that was the golden age of hockey. Like, it doesn't, like, how can it get better than this? Like, if you look back at some of, the greatest teams in history, like you think about Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg on those Avalanche teams, or you think of like Zetterberg, Datsuk, like those guys in Detroit. It's like, those guys were good, but were they smashing records every season? Like, it's not even close, I think it's just crazy. We're blessed right now.
We are, absolutely, and again, it's the Bedards who are coming, who are already who are already here, and the Carlsons, and Macklin Celebrini is certainly special. He'll be the number one pick this year, and the cool thing about Matthews, McDavid, and all these guys that we've been talking about, those two in particular, they're right around our current age too, which is a really cool thing. So it's easy to relate, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. We're in a special time in hockey for sure. So Case, still going with Kucherov at the end of the day?
Yeah, I got to make it interesting. I can't just go with the favorite no matter what.
Chad? I think Kuch should be the favorite. So yeah, I'm going with him.
I will take McKinnon. I know that it's regardless, and I heard this on another podcast the other day, you can't just, your sole argument can't be, well, he's never won it before. But he is certainly deserving of it, and that's all that matters, right? Is that, the guy who wins it at the end of the day is deserving of it, and McKinnon certainly is. And, before he really broke out as being, close to a 100-point player and being a superstar in the National Hockey League, we can remember when there were some bad Colorado teams when they were going through that rebuild, and, looking at McKinnon and saying, boy, oh boy, all the talent in the world is there. But, and he's even said this before on other podcasts and in interviews, I might just be like a 50, 60 point guy in the NHL and have a good career and all that. Well, I mean, we're not surprised now to see that he is that he is an absolute superstar. And so, yeah, I'll go with McKinnon. It'd be great to see.
I mean, I've already mentioned it this episode, maybe Kucherov, Hart, and McKinnon, Ted Lindsay at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be the best of both worlds, honestly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, McKinnon's never had a Hart. Kucherov has. I get it. Even though, McKinnon probably should have won the year that Taylor Hall did. I know people were upset about that year. I know Taylor Hall had a good season too, but anyways, I think that should be it for the Hart. Are we ready to move on to the Norris?
Yep, that's it for the Hart. So good discussion there, fellas. And we'll move on to the Norris Trophy here before we wrap up. So Chad, same kind of deal. Do you want to go over the odds for the Norris?